Next. Slide. And, so I'm coming from LA. I come from movement work, right? I came up in the marches and protests of Los Angeles. So there's one thing we love to do is break the ice. You know what I'm saying? We hate ice, And so we're going to do a little breaking of the ice right now. So what I want everybody to do, right? Everybody, I want you to get a partner, right? So I want you to get in groups of 2, or if you're feeling adventurous, you can do a 3, you know what I'm saying? That's what I say in college. You can go threesome if you want, what I mean? It's college. But so groups of 2 or 3, all right? Hold on, not yet. Y'all are getting crazy. Okay? Not yet. All right, hold on. Sit down. All right. No, but stay where you are. Yes. So in your groups, what I want you to do, I want you to share 3 things, okay? Number 1, I want you to share your full name. 1. Number 2, I want you to share where you were born. But don't say California. That's boring. Okay? Don't be boring today. I want you to share the name of the hospital, the name of the street, the town. Do you know what time you were born? I want you to share that. And if you don't know, just say, I don't know. And the 3rd thing I want you to do is share where your parents are born. Again, don't say Mexico, the U.S. That's boring. What's the name of the town, the hospital, the time? And if you don't know, that's okay. It's part of the exercise, right? And not everybody was raised by their parents. So if you were raised by your grandparents or if you're adopted, where were they born? Just share as much as you know, and that's it, okay? This exercise is called, where are you from? Right? And so I'm going to give everybody 3 minutes just to do some sharing right now. Those 3 things. But some of y'all still look confused. And that's okay. So me and Ryan Stubbs are going to give an example. Okay? For example, my name is Hector Paul Flores. I was born in a barrio in East LA called City Terrace, Santa Marta Hospital, 139 North Humphreys Boulevard, 5:45 p.m. I'm a Leo. Hey, like you didn't even know. Come on now. Come on. My mom is from Morelia, Michoacan, Mexico, from the colonias, Juarez. I don't know the name of the hospital. My pops, he's from a border town, San Luis Rio Colorado, Sonora, Mexico, right under Yuma, Arizona. I don't know exactly where he was born. So that's something I got to get. And that's it. Ryan Stubbs.
All right. This is working okay? You can hear me okay? Okay. My name is Ryan Joseph Stubbs. I was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia, at I think it was called Northfield Hospital. I might just be mixing that up, but my birthday is coming up, and we already established that I was a Taurus. And where are my parents from? So my dad is from a small rural county called Wilkinson County, Georgia. But I've spent most of my life in Colorado, growing up in Colorado. So, and my mom's from Pennsylvania somewhere. All right, and now we're throwing out to you guys.
And that's what you're going to do. We have 3 minutes to do it. Take it away, familia. We started at 1:45?
Yeah.
So what's the end time?
3:15? 3:15, right? Yeah, 3:15. Okay. So we got an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
I'm impressed you know what music to pull out for game music.
Yeah.
Got it.
Something light, hello. Okay. I always forget how much I talk to myself. I always forget how much I talk to myself, and I can hear. I'm like,
it's good. It's great.
We should be on the second person. You should already be on the second person if you're not already. All right, we got the last minute. The last minute, we should be wrapping up. We should be wrapping up. All right, we keep it moving. All right. We're gonna start winding down. Let's start winding down. All right, everybody kind of done? Ish. All right. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. If you can hear me, say, oh yeah. All right. Now raise your hand. Raise your hand if you were born in Sacramento, California. All right, look around. Okay, hands down. Raise your hand if your parents were born in Sacramento, California. Okay, a little bit less. Raise your hand if you were born in California. All right, hands down. Raise your hand if your parents are born in California. Interesting. Okay. Raise your hand if you were born outside of California. Okay, hands down. If your parents are born outside of California. Okay. Raise your hand if you're born outside the country. Okay, keep them up. If your parents are born outside the country. If your grandparents are born outside the country. If your great grandparents are born outside the country. Okay, hands down. If you don't know, go like this. All right, cool. Anybody identify as indigenous, Native American, native? Didn't specify. If you don't know, go like this. Okay, dope. I will plant the seed. Everybody's indigenous to somewhere. We'll plant that out. So just leave that there for another workshop over here. Let that garden flow. What did we notice from this exercise that we just did? What did you see? Variety. What else? Ooh, yes. One more. Led to other conversations. Do we all come from different places? Do we all got different faces? And some of us still trying to tie our shoelaces. And more than anything, what it shows me is we come from a lot of different places, which means there's a lot of different stories. Right? It's a lot of different stories here. And we've convened here, and I always think it's fascinating. I go across the country and I always do this exercise, and it's always so dope to see that we actually come from all over. Right? So why is that important? One is because everybody's got a story to tell. And beyond your job, beyond your work, what you do for a career, how you pay the rent, right? There's a common role and purpose for us. And that's one is the role of the storyteller. And I don't know if everybody knows that. And so I'm here to tell you that you're a storyteller. And I'm here to tell you that because somewhere along the way, someone told me that, and I didn't realize it. And so I'm here to share that with you. And you don't need a degree. that doesn't come with the pay. It's a common purpose. So there's this movie I saw. There's this movie I saw a long time ago. It's called Coco. Did you ever see that one? I'm going to tell you, I did not want to see it. Because I saw what Disney did with Pocahontas. I was like, I'm not going to have none of that. But I got free tickets. So I didn't pay for it. And so I went to go see this movie, Coco. And you know what happened? I cried 3 times. I cried 3 times. My father just passed away. And it was talking about remembering. And it talked about this one really important thing that just sticks with me all the time. And so I want to, for anybody who saw Coco, let me see, raise your hand if you know the answer. What is the ultimate death? Yes. Not being remembered. There's a free churro for you at Costco. After this. Extra cinnamon. What is the ultimate death? Not being remembered. So dying is actually not the end. It's when someone is forgotten. Now, how does someone get forgotten? See? They don't get talked about. See? They didn't tell their stories. That's how we get forgotten. That's how people get forgotten. We don't tell their stories. And that's actually how we die. And our ancestors knew that. Before Instagram, before the internet, before all that, they would pass things down. I'm in a band, and I play this song called La Bamba. A lot of people know La Bamba because it was a 1957 hit by Richie Valens. A lot of people don't know it's actually a 400-year-old Afro-Mexican song that survived slavery, survived colonialism. It survived Bush 1 and 2 and Trump. And it's going to survive us. Why? Because it was passed down. There was a time when people would pass things down, right? So why are stories important? Because that's how we stay alive, right? If you don't know where you were born, the time, the place, the address, who's going to tell your story 100 years from now, 400 years from now? If you don't know where your mama was from, the time she was born, the hospital, the place, who's going to tell your mama's story? Right? That's our job. And so everybody's documenting, but nobody's remembering. So stories play a very important role in the fabric of us, of our lives, right? And so that's a really important thing. And so one is, I think we're next. Slide. And so I want to start there, right? I want to start there. Like the power of stories and the role it plays in our lives is ancestral. And now it's come to us to make sure things get passed on, right? Like there's a power in our lives and what we're trying to do, So there's this really, I'm going to end with this one. I'm going to move on to this one real quick. There's a homeboy in L.A. He goes by the name of the Gangster Gardener, Ron Finley. Amazing work. Does like gardens on the sidewalks and all that stuff. But he has this really dope analysis. I was talking to a homegirl in the back, and that's why she made me think of it. He said, in the 80s, South LA was dangerous because of the drive-bys. Now it's dangerous because of the drive-through. More people dying from high cholesterol, diabetes, bad eating habits than from drive-bys. And then he said, you know what's killing us? You know what's been killing us? Food. You know what's going to heal us? Food. Same thing, but different. And when he said that, it blew my mind. And I connected it to this story framework. You know what's been killing us? Stories. The stories about us, not by us. What was the story What was the story, when they saw Trayvon Martin walking in Florida? What was the story of young black men, right? That cost him his life. But what's going to heal us? Stories. Same thing. But who's telling it, right? From what perspective? So I'm going to take you to this next piece right here. This thing took me years to create. Years. It's called, no, I didn't say slide. No. Back. Back. The other one, back. The word you were just on, same hood, different worlds. It's called Same Hood, Different Worlds. So we're going to go through this quick. All right, boom, all right? Raise your hand, put your hand down. So I'm going to say a statement. If it applies to you, put your hand up. If it doesn't, keep it down, okay? So for example, if you LA Lakers fan, put your hand up. Hey, if you hate the Lakers, keep them down. You know what I'm saying? Boom. Easy peasy. Raise your hand if your parents graduated from a 4-year university in the United States. All right? Hands down. Raise your hand if you had family that's ever been incarcerated or in prison. All right? Hands down. Raise your hand if growing up, let's say from age 1 to 14, you could walk to a liquor store. Okay, hands down. Raise your hand if from age 1 to 14, you live by a highway, a freeway, or interstate. All right, hands down. Raise your hand if you know what Whole Foods is. All right, hands down. Chuckle. I'll bring that back later. Raise your hand if you got family who suffers from high cholesterol or diabetes. All right, hands down. Last one. Raise your hand if you know somebody who eats hot Cheetos or Takis every single day. All right, hands down. All right. So this is part of a larger presentation, larger workshop, right? So what I didn't share earlier is that I'm a sociologist. This is what we look like. Hey, what's up? Hey, we're unemployed. You know what I'm saying? Doing the damn thing. And so what we just did right now is what we would call in the academic world as a community asset map. Trying to understand who's in the room based on experiences, right? And based on the activity, you saw people put hands up and hands down, right? And so what I want to highlight from here is something that Fabi actually talked about earlier. She talked about worldview and culture. And so maybe some of you know what worldview is. Maybe some of you don't. I don't not assume. But a worldview is the way you view the... Damn. That's the worldview, the way you view the world. The dope thing about the worldview, the thing that's very, very interesting, is the way you view the world is directly connected to the experiences you had growing up. I'm going to repeat that because I want to make sure you understand that. The way you view the world, you understand everything you see is directly connected to the experiences you had growing up. So if you grew up on a reservation, that's different than growing up in Sacramento. If you grew up in the Midwest, that's different than growing up in New York, right? If you had parents who graduated from college, that's different than having parents who don't speak English, right? If you grew up going to shop for your dinner and lunch at a liquor store, that's different than having access to a Pavilions of Vines or a Whole Foods. Very different. And that doesn't mean you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're right. It just is. That's the way you understand the world. And we have to understand that everybody here has a different world view. Everybody here grew up differently. You can grow up in the same hood and have a very different world view. You can grow up in the same hood but come from very different worlds. You hear me? And that's what I want to make sure we understand. Because when we talk to people about the arts, when we talk to people about what is important to me, they have a very different worldview because they grew up differently. So we have to identify, where do we connect? What do I care about? What do you care about? And that's not always easy. Why don't they see things the way I do? Because they didn't grow up like you. I'm the oldest of 6, right? I have 2 sisters. I don't know what it's like to growing up being a woman of color in California, in LA, in the East Side, with a single mother. That experience is foreign to me. And unless I'm willing to listen, I will never know. And just my sister's experience is different from another woman's experience. You hear me? So there's reciprocity. The young one, the native elder that was sitting here said, I just need you to listen. It's so real. Because that's where we're going to understand where we connect. Right? Because there's a lot of places where we're different, but there's a lot of places where we connect. We're the same. So I'm going to share a story, wrap up one, and then we're going to get to the data right here. Okay? So that part, same hood, different worlds. Tell it to your friends at dinner parties. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So before I was a musician, I was an organizer. I was trained under a Black Panther ex-Black Panther named Anthony Thigpen in South LA. And then I went to go organize in the East Side, youth organizing. So that was about 10 years of my life. And so I used to run a youth program called United Students. And my job was to do political education, cultural education, and make sure young people knew how to organize, how to do surveys, how to get data, because when you get data, then you can control the conversation, because you have the numbers. So we would do surveys in high schools and things like that. I was invited to a conference. It was called the State of the East Side, because East Side of LA had 3 of the most overcrowded schools in the country. Right? And so the dropout rate, or the push-out rate, as we called it, was wild. And so they invited me to this presentation. And I remember that was one of the first times, I did this workshop. And I remember I was in a room of about 70 philanthropists, administrators, directors, principals, who were all thinking about how to increase graduation rates in the East Side. So I did this exercise with them at the end. I said, raise your hand if you know somebody who eats hot Cheetos or Takis every single day. How many hands do you think went up in that room? Even one of the lawyers said, who would do that? He was like dumbfounded. He was like, who the fuck would eat hot Cheetos every day? You know? And I remember I went to the East Side, and I had like a workshop with like 50 kids, and I'm like, yo, raise your hand if you know somebody who eats hot Cheetos or Takis every single day. How many hands do you think went up? Oh my God, all these red fingertips were like that, yeah. And the homegirl's like, I know someone, mister. I feel like Moses at the Red Sea, with just all these like, red fingertips. I'm like, yo, what's up? What does that... But I want to uplift something, right? I want to uplift something. You had a group of people who were talking about change in an area, right? And you had young people who lived in that area. What am I trying to uplift in this story? I'm going to use the D word. Disconnect. You had all these folks that were trying to identify how to address issues, right? How to increase graduation rates, but they didn't even know what these kids ate. They didn't know what they ate for breakfast, for lunch, and probably their dinner. There's a disconnect. But they're the ones charged with making decisions. You understand? And a lot of us, we live in those worlds. Sometimes we on one end and sometimes we on the other, right? And so, what time we got, Stubbs?
2:17.
2:17. That means we got 1 hour, Stubbs, to change the world.
Better hurry.
Okay. All right. Last one, and then I'm starting right here. This is going to take 2 minutes, Stubbs. quick.
Take however long you want. Yeah, I'm enjoying this.
So I ran a youth group. And so I would come and I would do presentations for the youngsters, and I'd say, hey, if you want to join United Students, meet me after class, right? If you want to change the world, meet me after class. The bell rang, everybody left. It's all good. It's all good. So I'm putting my stuff away. This kid comes up to me. I didn't even know he stayed back. He comes up to me, he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, mister, can I ask you a question? And I turn around, I'm like, oh, man. Young man, you can ask me anything you want. And I'm looking at this young man, and I'm like, oh, what's he gonna ask me? I'm like, damn, it's dope. This kid stayed back. He wants to join United Students. I'm gonna help him. We're gonna organize our neighborhoods. We're gonna increase A through G classes. He's gonna graduate high school, go to college, graduate, get his law degree. He's gonna run to be a senator. He's gonna then run to be president of the United States. He's gonna lose the first time, because you always lose the first time. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna run, and he's gonna win. He's gonna be the first Chicano president of the United States of America, and that fool's gonna be at the top and say, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody, but I want to thank Hector Flores, who invited me to United Students. So that's in my head, right? And I'm like, yes, young man, what is your question? And he looks at me and he's like, mister, where'd you get your shoes? And the disappointment that I felt at that moment. And I looked down, and I was wearing a pair of Toms. Remember Toms? Remember those shitty shoes? Remember? So I was wearing a pair of Toms, and I was with this disappointment, I said, I don't know, man. I got them at Whole Foods. And what does he tell me? What's Whole Foods? He says, what's Whole Foods? And something that's got to be one of the biggest lessons of my life. It's like a brick to the face. Something that I learned that day that I'm sharing with you today because it was so important and profound in my learning, right? Is that me and this kid, both Chicano kids from the east side, right? Same hood, different worlds. I go shopping at Whole Foods. Everything I eat is organic. No MSG, no GMO, no NWA, you know what I'm saying? None of that stuff in my food, And this kid, I could tell by his fingertips where he gets his breakfast, his lunch, and maybe his dinner. And what I realized at that moment is, I know nothing about this kid. I think I do. I'm over here being the organizer, but I know nothing about this young man. And unless I sit down and listen to him, that's the only way I'm going to learn. And unless I share, he's not going to know nothing about me. Same hood, different worlds. And I share that because a lot of us doing work in different neighborhoods, different communities, for whatever reason, our degrees and our work and our whatever gives us a sense of, sometimes we feel a sense of superiority. And so we got to check that and go to listen, right? Next. Slide. So what's a story? Quick, what's a story? I don't care what you know. I want to care what you think. Quick, what's a story? Legacy. What's a story? Like on the most basic form. What's the story? Huh? Beginning, middle, end. What's the story? Your narrative. What happened? Okay. Are all stories true? Okay. Are all stories false? So how do you know the difference? Does it matter? Interesting question. All right, here we go. Did Christopher Columbus find the United States? Interesting. Now, if you ask Christopher Columbus, what would he say? He would say, hell yeah, I did. But if you ask the Taino people, what would they say? Depends who you ask. Depends who you ask. Isn't that interesting? Not all stories are true, not all stories are false. So it kind of comes out, who can tell the best story? Who has the data? Who has the information? Right? And some stories are better than others, right? And so we then have to be equipped with not only stories, but also facts. It's our armor. We need the data, right? And so that's what I want to get into. That's not what I do. I'm a storyteller, but I don't always have the numbers. And my boy right here, Stubbs, he's got the numbers. And so we wanted to set the foundation about the power of stories and storytelling. We need to have that common understanding. Now we're going to get into some numbers, right? Because he's going to give us some beautiful, beautiful fuel that's going to fuel our stories to be able to tell better stories for our people. Okay? Can we give a big round of applause right here for Ryan Stubbs right here? Coming up.
How about a round of applause for Hector here? How about that?
Oh man, this is tough to follow, but we're gonna do our best. Next slide. All right. Sorry. All right. So
getting into the importance of shaping the narrative, and I wanted to start with this slide because I think it really speaks to what Hector was talking about and the importance of stories in developing narratives. So this slide is actually a framework that was built by a consulting group called Metropolitan Group. And our organization, the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, did some work with Met Group not too long ago. And we use this framework as a way of thinking about shifting narratives, specifically about shifting narratives around the arts, right? And I think one thing that's really interesting here is that, to me, one of the most important parts is the story. So represented here by the leaves on the trees, that's the stories. That's what people perceive, right? So the person who's hearing the story is either receptive or resilient to the message that you're giving. And so what we perceive, regardless of what the overall narrative is or what our framework is, it's what the stories that we're hearing. So from these stories that we hear, that creates the cultural narratives that are relevant to how we advocate for the arts. So all of this comes back to how do we shift those narratives to one that might perceive the arts as a nicety, to one that might perceive the arts as essential to our well-being and to our communities. And so in order to do that, we have to have the right stories. And we do have a shared narrative, right? There are shared beliefs in the world that we see that are out there that come through what we hear through communications or what we hear through the media. And there's a shared narrative that affects how receptive people are to funding certain initiatives or advocating for certain policies. And we come from really different worlds, right? And the people that are making the decisions, they're often coming from a different world, and we have to find common ground and tell stories that relate to them in order to shift that narrative. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm curious, I know that these are out there, that there are narratives that negatively affect how receptive people are to funding the arts or how receptive legislators are to funding the arts. So what are some narratives that are out there that you think negatively affect public investment in the arts? They're optional. Go ahead. They're not viable for, so you often hear this, oh, I want to be an artist growing up. What are you thinking? Maybe you should consider a different career path. That's a social narrative that we hear. Any others? Disruptive. Yes. Go ahead.
There's no way to tell if engagement in an arts activity makes a difference in somebody's life. There's no hard evidence.
Well, that's interesting because I think we can talk about that because I think for a lot of these narratives, there's things that we can counteract. There's messages that we can counteract. There's research and there's data that often counteracts information such as, oh, the arts aren't an important investment or they don't have an effect on people's lives. There's actually lots of research that shows the powerful benefits of the arts in communities and people's lives. So part of that is about shifting the narrative, and we can talk about what are those individual things that we can counter just from a data and research perspective. But I think we also have to just take it back. So we're not always on the defensive when somebody says, oh, the arts are not a worthy investment for reason A or B. We have to know what our core beliefs are and how the arts change communities. And so I wanted to just put it out there. So what are some of your core beliefs and why the arts are important to your lives? Can you switch the slide, please? So yeah, what do we believe are the core benefits of the arts?
They allow your imagination to come alive.
Your imagination to come alive. Changing the visual landscapes of the aesthetics of your community. Go ahead. Make life worth living, yes. Good for your health. Safe spaces and safe communities. Back there. They help us shape the future. Yes. Go ahead. Yes. Well, you guys have a lot of core beliefs and the benefits of the arts that far outweigh what you were able to talk about as narratives that may be less predisposed to the arts. But so obviously in this room, I think we're going to have those things, but that's not always going to be the case with everyone, right? There are things that we believe about the arts and we know them to be true, but one way to help us develop that framework and those messages that are going to resonate with lawmakers and are going to resonate with the public in general is being able to create those stories based on those messages within those core beliefs, and to find out, how do some of those core beliefs and how do some of those stories that affect our personal lives, how can we relate those to decision makers, right? So how do our beliefs align with priorities for policymakers? So we talked about some good ones here already. And go ahead and switch the slide. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this research that our organization did in collaboration with Metropolitan Group, and it's called Arts and Creativity Strengthen Our Nation. So the web address is here. Our website is nasa-arts.org. You can find this pretty easily under the Advocacy page or just Google Arts and Creativity Strengthen Our Nation. And on to the next slide. So in developing this, we wanted to make sure that we're developing messages based on research. So we had a team of individuals that started in cooperation with Met Group to start building out and testing messages. And so we tested the messages, and a big part of what we were trying to do in this research was figuring out what sort of messages resonate with conservative lawmakers, right? So we're looking at both. We tested the message with people from both parties. It included elected officials, advocates, appropriations staff. And so we're doing this on the national level, right? So at the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, we're the membership association for the nation's 56 state arts agencies. And as you know, states have varied political landscapes, let's say, right? But that's not just at the federal level, right? Every place. California is diverse politically as it is ethnically. And so I think in developing this, it's not just for national advocacy. I think it makes a lot of sense for reaching out to all types of communities, and especially messages that might resonate with conservative lawmakers. Because I think the truth is that in order to advance the arts, we're going to need broad political coalitions, and that's just going to be a fact. So in developing this, we talked to a variety of lawmakers. Again, it was a little bit focused on conservative lawmakers, but we came up and tested some messages about the benefits of the arts, right? So one part of this is that using the term strength was really important in that messaging, and conservative lawmakers were receptive to this idea of strength. I guess, if you say you're strong, you're kind of projecting strength. I don't know. That's what we found. But I'm curious, what are some benefits of the arts that you think resonated with conservative policymakers? Up there. Economic engine, yes, the E word. Tourism, yes, I'm hearing seeing dollar signs and hearing dollar signs. Others? Yes, go ahead. Pushing patriotic narratives, that is one way to think of economic development, for sure. Go ahead. Connecting family, yes. Go ahead. Lower crime rates, yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. So you're right. If you can move to the next slide, I believe these are some of the benefits that tested high. And so this is not, I think this is not just about conservative lawmakers. Like that's part of what we're going at for kind of a federal appropriation strategy. But these are benefits of the arts that resonated with everyone that was tested. And then we just kind of developed some messaging that would be more helpful, I think, to conservative audiences. But these are the same messages that we just talked about, right? Well, maybe a little less emphasis on the economics, but listen, I've been doing research in the arts for like 15 or 20 years, and we've been talking about the economic benefits of the arts for a long time, and it's still really important, right? It remains important. Also, health and well-being. We were just talking about health and community well-being, so this is a message that I think resonates for many of us. Communities, that's a bit of an amorphous term, right? But strengthening communities, understanding the community benefits of the arts resonate with a lot of people, and arts education, right? So education is an important thing for many people from many walks of life. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. So given those 4 things that we can talk about, I just wanted to go through some data that we can try to connect with those benefits of the arts that we think, or not that we think, that we know are important, and we know that people are receptive to those messages. So I think one thing to think about is, when you have some data, think about how that data relates to the stories you know about your community. Like, for example, we can say things about the economic value of the arts on a high level. And in California, you're really lucky because you have the Otis report. So I would say, use the Otis report, use the data in there, use the localized data that's in there. And there's many other places to get data about the economic value of the arts, but there's things you can say like the creative industries or creative economy employment in California is nearly 2 million people and accounts for about 15% or over $500 billion in the California economy. So when you see those people with those dollar signs in their eyes, you have some dollar signs to present. But I think it's also important to connect this to, you see creative businesses in your communities, you're artists, you're working, you're employed, you see that there's transactions. So it's not just this amorphous dollar sign of huge billions of dollars. It's about artists working, and it's about a really robust creative economy, especially in California. Next, we'll go to, I believe, health and well-being. So there's more and more research all the time about the benefits that the arts have on individual well-being, both physical and mental health. I have just a few examples up here from work that's really great that comes from the University of Florida Center for Arts and Medicine. So we can say things like the University of Florida Arts and Medicine has shown that arts and culture provide direct health benefits, and they also strengthen health communication in our communities, right? So there's some real public health frameworks and benefits that have been developed, and there's many researchers that are out there, but this work from University of Florida I think is really just one of the great ways of framing the value of arts to public health. Next. So communities, Health and well-being of communities also relates, obviously, to the arts and health. But there's also things that we can say about the value of the arts to the communities. And if we're talking about rural communities especially, one thing that I wanted to pull out is that this research from USDA, which is the Rural Innovation Survey, and it was also produced by the NEA, shows that rural counties that have a performing arts organization, they have population growth that's 3 times higher, higher incomes, and also recover quickly from recession. So there's some real evidence of the value of arts access and access to arts experiences in rural places, and stopping some of those things that we want to stop, like brain drain. Next. Arts education. So again, there's a lot of research that's out there, but if we, and a lot of times I think it's hard to decipher or boil down what can be really complex research studies. But from an advocacy standpoint, I think it's important to do. And one thing that you can say is that we know that students, especially those of lower socioeconomic status, graduate at a higher rate when they participate in the arts. So that's just kind of going through those 4 benefits that we know are important in messaging. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. As an advocate, again, as Hector was saying, I think everything is contextual, right? And so whatever relationship or whatever way that we're interacting with another person, having to build those relationships and understanding their story, and then making the connections to the message and the data, I think can be a really effective strategy. So I will stop with the boring research stuff, and we can go to the next.
Hey, can we give it up right here for my homeboy Stubbs right here? What I love about this is that he did the research so I didn't have to. Like when I was talking to Julie Baker, she's like, imagine there's an organization that did all this research about what right-wingers, the way you could pitch to right-wing folks. I'm like, that would be amazing. It's like, yeah, we got them. And so this research is for me, it's amazing to see. When they sent me this report, I kind of read it twice. It was sort of what I needed in terms of in the conversation that I was going to be entering in this work, because I come from a story-based perspective, which I think is needed, is foundational to how you approach things. But what I'm always missing is the data. I remember when I was doing educational justice work, someone told me, he said the most dangerous times of the day for young people was between 3 and 6 p.m. So when you cut after school programs, right, where do folks go, right? And if you got like a single parent or you got folks who are working and they don't got anywhere to go, well, then you're creating the conditions for them to get involved in things that they might not have gotten involved with, right? So I remember someone dropping that data, and I was like, yo, that just allowed me to share a story that was much more relatable, right? So what I want to go to now is, let's go to the next slide. Hopefully it's the right one. Check. What makes a good story, right? I know not everybody see it, but I just saw. Anybody see the show The Last of Us? Raise your hand if you saw The Last of Us. Some of y'all did, right? The rest of y'all, get with it. Now, it's like post-apocalyptic, kind of zombie-like. It's like, why is that? I told my wife, you should watch that. She's like, why would I want to watch that? I go, yeah, why? Why would I tell somebody to watch this post-apocalyptic, pandemic, kind of zombie movie? Because the story under that is so good. Like the story, right? And so what makes a good story? Next slide. Oh, wait. Oh, go back. Go back. I thought we had it in there. Okay, I'm going to go over the 4 things right here. So what makes a good story? I'm just going to say it right here because we want to move on, because I want y'all to have this conversation amongst y'all, right? I kind of broke it down into 5 pieces. Are these the 5 legit pieces? No. Right? It's not perfect. You can build upon it. But these are things that in my experience and my work has really helped me when I think about crafting a story or working with other people. One is what we've been talking about. What makes a good story? One, it's personal. It's personal. Everyone's got a different story. And when you tell your own story, if it's personal and emotion driven. So if you share how you feel about it, nobody can negate it. Nobody can negate how you feel about something. Even if you disagree, they can't tell you you're wrong. The data could be wrong, right? Could be different or whatever, but nobody can tell you that you feel like your feelings are wrong. So when you tell a personal story and it involves, and it's emotion driven, you can describe your emotions, that's kind of what you want. You want people to share how they feel about something, because that cannot be negated in any conversation, you know? And then number 2, tension and conflict, right? There's always, in any story, there's conflict, right? Number 3, which comes to the data piece. Data, statistics, but what I call it is like relatability, right? So is the arts good because it's good for me? Actually, no. Like 1 in 3 people in California, 1 in 3 people in California are engaged in the arts because of this and this and that. You can use data to be like, this is not just me, but like, a third of my neighborhood, a third of my school, X amount of people also would benefit from the arts, right? So it's not just an individual thing. I don't want it because it's good for me, right? But actually it's good for the community, right? And you have data and statistics to be able to back up what you're trying to say, right? Number 4, lessons learned. Like, what is the lesson learned in the work, right? So folks always love in a story, what is the lesson learned? 1, because it allows you not to be like a perfectionist. Like, we don't know everything, right? So when you share, like, actually going through this whole process, my biggest takeaway is, what I learned on the way is, my experience working with folks, or my experience with this is, like, what's the takeaway? And that just shows a level of vulnerability, right? We're like, we're all learning. So I'm sharing a story where I also learned, and hopefully the other person also be receptive to that and also share that they also can be vulnerable. And the last but not least, right? What makes a good story is you move hearts and challenge minds. Now, I didn't say change minds, right? You don't have to change somebody's mind, but can you challenge them? You challenge them to, if they agree with you, you challenge them to keep going. But if someone disagrees with you, you still challenge. It's still, a good story would still challenge them, right? Even if they disagree, but they got to think twice about it. And that's okay, right? And when Julie Baker hit me up and was like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this workshop? You got data and you got stories. I said, well, data changes minds, but stories change hearts. And we got to change both. Right? And some folks, depending on who you're talking to, some people, you need to change the mind. Some folks, you need to change the heart. And some folks, you got to do both. And some folks, you just got to be like, not in this lifetime. Next slide. The 3 I's in storytelling, right? So this also comes about, like, who's your audience? Always, 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 who's your audience? If you're going to talk to an ally, how do I approach the ally? If you're going to talk to someone who's on a different spectrum from you, right, you have to approach them differently, right? And I always think about it in terms of the 3 I's sometimes, but one is you have a story and you kind of like, it's almost like you have a piece of wood, right? And you chop it, you cut up, like, do you need a table? Do you need a chair? Do you need a wall? Do you need a window, right? You chop up the wood depending on what you need. Right? But it's the same story because it's your story, your experience, your narrative. That doesn't change so much, but the way you approach it, the way you tell it, right? So 1 is you have your individual story, right? Your individual story, your individual experience, right? With, in this case, with the arts. Everybody has an art story. When did you fall in love? When did you fall in love with the arts? How did it make you feel? Right? What is your individual story? 2 is the interpersonal story, is the story that you allow yourself to share with others. So there's the story that could be filled with life, trauma, tension, conflict, but it's yours and you like, this is it. But then there's a story that you share with someone else, the interpersonal, right? And that one's not necessarily, that's not filled with data. That's filled with heart. That's filled with experience. that's filled with story, right? The interpersonal is that heart story, right? And then there's a third eye, the institutional, right? And that's when you're dealing with policy folks, policy makers, people who can make decision makers. That's when you're dealing with the data. What is the story that you're telling these folks? And that's the one where you want to be equipped with data. It's the heart story with the data, right? And that it's not only about you, but it's also about a larger community, right? And so the three I's, your individual story, your interpersonal story, and the institutional story. And for me, I'm an organizer. So that's kind of how I think. That's my worldview. So when they used to drop me off in the neighborhood, because we used to have, at the end of the month, we used to have community meetings. My job was to make sure I had 50 people at a neighborhood meeting. So I would go door to door. Think about when someone comes to your door and knocks on your door in the middle of the day, right? It's like, it's the worst. It's the worst. So when I would go, and I knew that. So when I would knock on that door, I know I have 5, 10, on a good day, 15 seconds to let somebody know that I'm real, that I'm authentic, and I'm inviting them to something, right? Like, you have to be honest. You come at me with a pitch, I'm done. You come at somebody like you're trying to sell some shit, you're done. So I would knock on the door, If, 5 doors, they don't open, right? It's like the 6th house. Someone finally opens. Hey, how you doing? My name is Hector Flores. I'm a neighbor. I live right here, 544 Villa Corona. We're doing some great work in the neighborhood to try to better schools. And I'm trying to get all my neighbors involved. We have a meeting at the end of the month. Clack. All right, cool. But she gave me 10 seconds. Right? But like, it's quick. Like, who am I? Like, I'm Hector Flores. First of all, I live right here. What am I trying to do? Right? So it's like, you need to have what people call an elevator pitch. Right? Like that short thing. You got a minute with somebody, you got 2 minutes with somebody, you got to know how to approach it. Right? And so that institutional pitch, which folks are going to engage in tomorrow, right? It's the combination. It's the individual, interpersonal with data to make that institutional pitch. But folks don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of time. So you kind of have to have that elevator pitch ready. How do you tell somebody, yo, I'm real, I'm personable, this is my, and it's really about being grounded in your story. It's really about being grounded in your story and kind of, and really just taking the time to kind of think about, like what I said, when did you fall in love? Gosh, everybody loves a love story. Everybody, I don't care how cold-hearted you are. Everybody loves a love story. You know what I'm saying? And we're here because we've been in love with the arts for a long time. And so how do you tell that story, right? You be vulnerable. Next! Slide. Thank you very much. Thank you. So what we're going to do right now, remember we had the pairs? We're going to develop our elevator pitch, but we're going to do it piece by piece, okay? So the first thing, we're going to spend about 2 minutes. Well, how much time we got, Stubbs? A little bit? Okay, so do y'all want to do it one by one or just all at the same time? What would be better? One by one? One by one. Okay, one by one. And your crew. So what you're going to have, remember, we're developing the elevator pitch, but you're excavating. Right now, everybody's miners. We're like miners. We're digging for the stories, in our lexicon. You're going to your memories and you're kind of digging up these stories, right? And so the first one right here, every one of these, we're going to spend about 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes, so you can have a minute share and then your partner, minute share, okay? Maybe a minute and a half. Number one, why are the arts important to you? But what I would say is, when did you fall in love? So in your partner, when did you fall in love with the arts? What was it, and how did it make you feel? Right? So I want someone a minute and a half to share, Share that experience. You know, maybe the experience was you liked it growing up, but man, when I was 22, I went to go see my sister's recital, her dance recital. She was graduating UCLA. She was in the WAC program. And I saw her dance with the crew, and I was just like, I was like, oh my God. Everybody should dance. Like, I saw freedom, you know? For an hour, I saw freedom. And I'm like, wow. Like, and I wasn't even the group. That was them. So I can only imagine how they felt, right? Like, what is that love story for you, right? And then we're going to go into the other ones. But we're going to start off slow. So 1.5 minutes. Everybody, what is your love story? Share it with your partner right now. I'll call you back in 3 minutes. Go for it. Yeah. Great job, Stubbs. Great job. Yeah, I kind of built to the top 4. That was good. They were super engaged. That was great. Oh man, we're great, bro. Is that double team, bro? Okay. Oh, let's. Let me. So we should do like a 1.5 minutes. Yeah, this is good. If they did 3 minutes, 3 times 4 is 12, even a little bit more, and then we'd have some volunteers to share. So maybe every 1.5 minutes, we'll be like, all right, switch if you haven't switched.
Can you play music again?
Oh, it's not plugged in.
Oh, no, it doesn't. It's just Bluetooth.
Okay, good. Oh, it's Bluetooth, that's right.
Are you going to play again?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't need to. Yeah, thank you. And I think I said it too. Huh? All right. Our homeboy. Yeah. I feel like what I said, vulnerability, I think that's another thing. I didn't have on here. I think being vulnerable with your story, I think is important. I said it, and I'm like, oh, it's not up there. For next time. Yeah, I think that's, it's a nice ingredient. It's like you can have the taco. The vulnerability is almost the salsa on a taco. You know, just like, you tell a story, but it gets that kick, you know what I'm saying? Oh, it opens. Yeah. Opens up the sinuses, man. Yeah. All right, you should be on the next partner if you haven't switched already. If you haven't switched already, you should be on the next person. Okay. All right. What evidence do you have? Yeah.
Are you giving that to me?
Yeah.
For what?
For the picture.
Oh, okay.
All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody? Huh? Not enough time? All right, good. So we're gonna keep it going if you still want to finish the part one, but if you're done already, you can go. I think what I'm gonna do is I think we just keep on, just answer them all. So I think we're gonna answer them all. If you did that already, hey. But again, number 2 is, when did you realize that not everyone had the same access? Like when was that realization to you? And how did it make you feel? Right? Number 3, why should the state support the arts in people's lives and communities? This is the data part, right? So what I love, based on the almost you pick one of the stats. Pick one of the stats that you remember that like, oh, that was dope. Like how I said, the most dangerous times for a young person between 3 and 6, that stat stayed with me. And I'm like, yo, I use that all the time. What stat did you hear that like, that was, yeah, I'm gonna use that one, right? So what stat stayed with you that you feel that you could use around why the state should support the arts? And then the last one, what evidence do you have? Okay? So I'm just gonna give folks, I'm gonna give everybody, right now we're gonna go about 8 more minutes. But after you're done, just keep on going to the next one. Boom, boom, boom. Cool? 8 minutes, we'll check in. All right, go for it, fam. All right. Yeah, it's good. Wait, in this place, they will get maybe about 3 volunteers. Yeah. You didn't bring any water, huh? Oh, no. Yeah. Is there any water back here? Oh, these are Stubbs. We're just thinking about that right now. Okay. For universities, nonprofits, because a lot of times I did it before, and then started the music thing, and that was a slow start. So we're like, well, fuck, doing club shows don't pay the bills. So, I was like, all right, what do we do well? Well, I go, well, I have all these like trainings that I would do, so I pitched it to a couple conferences. So there's like a conference called the National Conference on Race and Equity, NCORE. So I pitched it there. There's another conference called Race Forward. Pitched it there, and we get accepted. And then after they accept our workshop, we would like send an email to the ED or whoever's a programmer, say, hey, we got accepted workshop. We'd like to play the after party for free. And they're like, okay, because we're already going. So then we would like, show up to conference, flyer the shit out of it, get everybody to our workshop. And then they'd come to our workshop, like 100 people, something like this, right? And they'd be like, hey, we're playing the after party. So then, but these folks would be administrators. They would run sort of like the multicultural centers and for universities. So they would see the workshop, they would see performance, and then, a couple weeks later, we'd say, hey, we'll be touring in the fall in your area. We weren't, or we said we were. And then, let us know if you want a workshop or performance. And people would write back, and then that's how we would, start doing tours. So, we could then, be like, oh, there's 4 colleges, in Washington State. So now we can do the shitty gig for $800 because they paid. Yeah, what do you call those anchor gigs? Like space? Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time. Yeah. I mean, we've had to reconfigure what we do in all kinds of settings for like schools, nonprofits. We've even done it for like businesses, but a lot of like staff development. You know, especially like once BLM popped off and everybody was doing like sort of trainings for staff. We kind of that was good. So what I did here, there'll be like music in between. So there'll be like a half a song to show. So like when I talked about La Bamba, like let me show you La Bamba. So like it's old school songs. Let me show you the old school way, right? And we'll sing a couple of verses like that song survive. So it'll be like a song. It'll be like presentation plus sonic kind of thing. Yeah. But then we have like an anti-bias, anti-racist training. This is like what I did here was like the storytelling approach. I have one called People's History of Music in the U.S., which is kind of after Howard Zinn's book. But I start with Richie Valens in the 50s all the way to today. Talk about movement music, like we're part of that legacy.
Right.
So that's kind of, and then, we, as we travel and pick up different things, it evolves, right? Like I shift it. You accommodate, right? We have a conversation, we accommodate. And this one's about the arts, right? So then how do we talk about it that way? But a lot of the stuff is the same. Like a lot of the lessons and pieces that I've done kind of work for different things. I mean, it doesn't have to change all that much, But yeah.
Well, NASA does conferences and stuff like that. I'll put in the word.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Hey, we're in Puerto Rico in 2024.
There it is. Oh, that's great. That's great. So is there NASA's everywhere? Like NASA orgs?
No, it's just like we're the one organization, we're just an association, and we just, our partners are just the different standards agencies. So that's really who we're doing work for. Yeah.
So how
And so they like.
how many folks will come to a conference similar to this?
It's a little bigger. It's usually like 400 people at a conference. Yeah. So it's just like people looking at all these different state arts agencies across the country, and some of them are big, some of them are one person, some of them have huge budgets, no budgets. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean now that you've seen, like, this is sort of like our take on it, right? Like how we think about stories and storytelling. We do it sonically as well. It also depends on the space. Like, does it make sense to put, like, sometimes we'll just need a mic and we'll just play, or if they have a better setup, we're a band where we can, we have keys and drums, but like for something like this, it's stripped. We'll have like 2-3 instruments, could be on the mic, nothing too crazy. And we do both, so it could either be like we'll do a workshop, a performance, or if people want it together, we could do that. But a lot of times people bring us out for, like, we'll do a workshop and then we'll do a performance, Or if they just want, like, you saw this, right? You might be like, hey, I just want that.
Right.
Cool, we can do that,
Cool.
And we roll out with like 3 of us would roll out, kind of thing,
Yeah, I think it works really well for kind of like the arts advocacy.
Yeah. I mean, again, you do what y'all did is like, that's amazing. It's amazing work. Because it's all it is. We're already doing the work. So what you're doing is just giving folks fuel, and ammunition to like just support their work and how people think about it.
Right. I mean, there's like different goals for different projects, right? This one was kind of, focused on just, needing to be able to have effective advocacy messaging for both sides. And partially it's just like out of fear of like who's going to be able to control power. Like you have to talk to them.
I know. And it's being ready for those, right? Like, who's your audience?
Right.
We have, what's his name? That fool's from the Central Valley. He's like the House minority. He's the House leader. What's his name?
In Congress?
In Congress. No.
Ken Calver?
No. Is it Congress or the House? Who's the House? The House leader?
Yeah, Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. He's from the Central Valley. Of California.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he's right here.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, like we're as diverse, right? As diverse as we're ethnically, also just politically. All right, check in the house. Check in the house. All right, let's be wrapping up. We got one more minute, and we're gonna go to the end of the workshop, end of the piece. So let's wrap it up right here. All right, check. All right, we getting to the end. We get it to the end. Check. All right. Let's start wrapping it up right here. Wrap. All right. It sounds like there's a lot of sharing, which is wonderful. That's good. Okay. So usually I'll do like a storytelling, like poetry prompt. So we work with young people, and so we'll give them prompts. It'll be like, I come from, and and you share like what you smell, taste, so you don't say I come from LA, but like I come from like Sunday morning tamales, the smell of grass on the soccer, things like that. And so we have 4 prompts, and so you answer the 4 prompts, and at the end, you put your answers together, and that's your poem. Right? So you would be like, I come from, boom. I dream of, boom. I fear, boom. And when I grow up, I will, boom. You just sort of insert it. What I want y'all to do right now really quick is I want you to create your elevator. You already created your elevator pitch. You did it. By answering these 4 pieces, you've done it. Now you just got to put it together. Right? So I'm going to give everybody's going to have 2 minutes to put together your elevator pitch. Right? And so remember at the top, good morning, my name is, I'm from, right? And I'm excited to be here because, or let me tell you about the first time I fell in love with music. And you just inserted what you said. But think about remember, elevator pitch. So you're just getting to the nitty gritty. This is not the end all be all, right? Right? And after you say, I remember the first time I fell in love with music, was at my sister's recital. I saw Freedom on stage, and I just said, everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to do this. And then I realized I never grew up with dance classes. And I just realized how many folks never got to do this, right? And what's the statistic, right, that you want to use, right? And what's the evidence? And just before I leave today, legislator, I just want to say the arts are so important for me because, boom, that's it. We're creating a skeleton elevator pitch, right? A skeleton elevator pitch with what you already said. You already did it. You're just putting it together. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and after that, I want a couple volunteers, right? Because part of telling your story is being vulnerable. And it's wonderful to be vulnerable in the room with other folks who also are in there with you, right? It's hard to do it. It's hard to do it with folks who are not with you, like at the state capitol, right? They're like, you got 2 minutes. But here we're all together. We're in it together. So I want you to put together your elevator pitch, right? Your story. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer too, just to come up and share. So then we can all hear. Right? And when you hear someone share their story, it also inspires you. And I'm going to say this to give you some of that will. When you share your story, you give other people permission to share their story. When you are afraid and don't tell your story, you give other people permission to be afraid. Right? And in this life, what do you want to give permission to? Right? And so I share that not as a push, but as a push. All right? Here's a couple minutes for you to put it together. You can do it on your notes on a piece of paper, or some of y'all are G and could just do it on the dome, and that's dope too. Go for it.
So we only have a couple minutes left. 3 minutes left. Do we have a hard stop? Oh my gosh, you creeped up on us.
We got some good news and we got some bad news. We got 3 minutes left. So you know what that means? No, I want one person to come up and share the story. So I know I was giving you time, but I just want one person who's ready to roll, who's ready to go. Huh? Who's ready to roll? Who's ready to go? Come on down. I said, come on down. I said, come on. Can we get a big round of applause for the volunteer? All right? I'm not here. And by the time she gets here, it'll be 2 minutes. Oh, now, yeah. Rock, paper, scissors right now.
Everybody come down.
Here we go. All right. Right here, let's use this mic right here. All right, let's set the stage. We at the state capitol. The legislator only has a couple minutes, ma'am. Please share whatever you have to say. They have a meeting to go to in about 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Kristen Dolan. I'm from La Quinta, California. And I don't know if you can remember your first time, but I remember the first time I fell in love with the arts. When I was about 3 years old, I was a ballerina. I got to express myself. I got to be seen. There was nothing better. And I didn't realize till I was older that not everyone had their chance to express themselves in the arts, whether it was dance or drawing or song. So when you're supporting the arts, you're supporting children being seen, better mental health. I've seen this evidenced in early childhood crisis centers where I used to work. Art allows them to be seen and express their emotions. And if you want to support the next generation, you should be supporting the arts. Thank you for your time.
Woo! Julie Baker. Julie Baker, did you hear that? Thank you. Thank you. Solidarity is the ability to say, I love you, and I don't even know you, and I just want to say, I love you. I don't even know you, but you here for the same reason I'm here. And I just want to say, I love you. I thank you. Share your story. And that's it. Thank you so much. I'm Hector with Las Cafeteras. We got Ryan Stubbs. We got a 3-minute break. Órale, familia. I'll see you. Gracias.